So today we're talking about being brave and how to be brave, and it's not always what you think it is. So when I say to be brave and courageous, I'm not sure what pictures you have come to your mind, but for some of us, we think of the braveness, of like the courage needed, like a firefighter who runs into a burning building and rescues people out of it. Or maybe you think of some army or navy or military person rescuing children while like the villages are blowing up. So whatever it is that you think of when it comes to being brave and courageous, I think a lot of those physical acts of heroism, um, a lot of us can't necessarily relate to. Like we've never been in those positions. I know there is one person that's usually on here that was in the military. I'm not sure if he saw active battle, but it's something that we think, oh gosh, I could never do that. But the interesting thing is, sometimes our everyday acts of courage, though they don't maybe seem like they take a lot of bravery, sometimes putting ourselves out there in a way that makes us vulnerable is also something that is an act of bravery or takes courage. We seem to want to like close up, keep in a shell, not share who we really are, afraid that people will judge us, and it keeps us from a lot of good things that life could offer us and a lot of good relationships. So uh, another, like maybe an act of bravery that you could, like if you see a car on fire by the side of the road and you pull over and you help pull somebody out of the car. But we have more chances every day to do little tiny acts of bravery. There's things that are stopping you right now that it might be picking up the telephone to call someone. If you're in sales and you just do not want to get another no, you don't want to get another person hanging up on you. And so you start to develop these things where you get afraid to call. Or maybe something that you need to do that's an act of bravery is to humble yourself enough to apologize to a relative, or to be vulnerable enough to put your work out there, to post about that art project, that thing that you're trying to do. Or some people are embarrassed to say, hey, I was fired from my job and I need work. Does anybody have any work out there? This is what I do. So we suffer in silence. We don't have that bravery or the courage to, put our stuff out there. Justin, could you mute your microphone, please?
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You weren't on when I told everybody to. As soon as you usually come on, people's mics are usually on, so you actually have to toggle it off. So being vulnerable to put your work out there and face possible judgment or ridicule, or I think this is the biggest one, to surrender to God and admit that you don't know it all, to admit that his way is better than your way, and just say, okay, God, I'm not going to fight you anymore. Whatever you want for my life, not my will, but yours be done, right? That's what Jesus had to do in the Garden of Gethsemane when he's praying, oh, please, Father, take this cup away from me. I can't do that. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And then he relented and said, but not my will, but yours be done. So can we do that? That's like the biggest act of bravery and courage, is just letting us have that humility, letting us have that surrender, letting us humble ourselves to admit we need help and that we don't know everything. So to me, those acts of bravery and kindness and courage, that doesn't require putting our physical life in jeopardy, like the first few examples I named, but it's going to require you maybe being judged, maybe in a way we don't like to be. It's going to be people, um, maybe it's going to be people we don't like. finding out like what we do or what we're up to, like our enemies seeing, oh, we're opening up and we're going to show our stuff in an art gallery. We're putting our book out, and then we've got the haters ridiculing us. Well, I just want to assure you that no matter what you do, God's plan is for the haters to see you, right? When the scripture tells us he will prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies, that means God's not taking your enemies away, but they're going to get to witness you becoming a success in front of them. Okay, so whatever that is, we don't have to do anything to prove anything to anyone. We don't have to rub it into them. We just have to be fabulous. We just have to be a success, and they'll see. They'll see. We don't have to do anything to like, I'm going to prove to them that I can do it. They said I couldn't do it. You know, it's God's going to take care of all that for you. Anybody who's hurt you, we don't have to make any plans at getting back at them, because God says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord, right? So I decided to teach on this today because there's a writer that I had been coaching for years. And he's this big, rough and tough guy with this really deep, booming voice. And so there was this incident where he was sharing with the writers group that I was leading. He was driving home the other day, and it was on this really busy street where cars are just whipping by 60 miles an hour. And he sees this little boy all alone walking down the sidewalk, and the little boy's all confused. He's in his underwear. And, you know, this person, this friend of mine, he did what most people would think was probably brave and courageous, is he helped that little child get to safety. So he looked around, he didn't see any grown-ups, he didn't see any parents. There was no other cars stopping. They were just zooming, whipping by, and this kid could have gotten splattered on the road, or worse. He could have got kidnapped, and then we don't want to talk about could have happened to him then. So I'm like trying not to say this person's name. Okay. So he rolls down his window and he starts talking to the little boy, asking like, "Oh, where do you live? Are your parents around?" And the little boy, he's so scared and confused. He starts running. So this friend of mine, he starts to follow the little boy just to make sure he's safe. So he's slowly following him, and then he's asking the boy, "Where are your parents? Can I help you find your house? Where do you live?" And eventually he's able to pull the car over and get the boy to trust him enough, and he holds the boy's hands, and they're walking all over, up and down the streets in this neighborhood, going door to door, and they're looking. Finally, this friend of mine sees that there's a door wide open. So he brings the kid in there, and he asks the kid, "Is this your house?" And the little kid nods. And so this friend of mine, he starts yelling in his big booming voice, "Hey, hey, hey, hello, anybody home?" And he's calling upstairs, hoping that the parents might. So the parents come rushing down. They were in a dead sleep. They had no idea that their little boy had escaped, and they were so startled to see this rough, gruff, burly man in their home, and their little boy in his underwear. Anyway, so I say all this because this friend of mine had no problem going into this house, um, facing the unknown. He didn't know what would happen if he wandered into a strange house. He didn't know necessarily if it was the right house. He didn't know if they were going to come rushing down the stairs with guns because he's in their house screaming, waking them up. And there's all kinds of stuff that could have happened, right? And he was able to face that, be brave, face that, no problem, no questions in his mind that he wouldn't do anything to save this kid. Yet, this man who did this is the same man who's afraid to put his work out there. He was afraid to put his book out there, even though he's got wonderful writing, beautiful writing, thought-provoking writing. It's so powerful. And it's about overcoming a certain challenge that a lot of kids face and high school kids face. And he's so worried and so scared to put the work out there, even though it could help so many people get over something that he had gotten over. And so he's got this voice in his head telling him, don't put it out there. Don't put it out there. It's not good enough. You're not good enough. Your writing isn't good enough. People aren't going to like it. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to judge you. Then everyone's going to know that you're not good enough. And you know what? That thought never crossed his mind when he saw that little boy walking down the street in his underwear. Those voices weren't going, oh, you can't stop. Oh, you can't help him. What will people think? They're going to look at you funny. What are they going to think you're doing to that kid? What are the parents going to say? There's all kinds of chatter that goes on in our heads. And sometimes it's just chatter. It's really not the truth. So that didn't come up when he saw someone in need, or if it did, he ignored the chatter and he rushed in to help. But there's a lot of people out there that I know that could use this man's writing, what he wrote, that they're being bullied in school. And they're just as vulnerable mentally as the little boy in his underwear was physically. And he has worked on creating this beautiful writings that could help these kids, these high school kids, middle school kids. It could really help them to gain the courage to ask for help, that could get them out of their comfort zone of, what to do when they're being bullied, so they don't, turn and want to get revenge or go back and shoot up the school and get back at their tormentors. So sometimes we have to think, who am I robbing of help by me being afraid to put my work out there? Who is it that their life could be changed, and the lives of many others around, if I was just brave enough to put my work out there? So what is that for you? What skills do you have? What hospitality do you have? What care, what love do you have that you need to maybe be brave enough to face some possible ridicule for putting out there, to step outside of your fears and your worries about what other people will think, to be brave, to be strong, to be courageous in the face of, what's unknown and unexpected. Could people, you know, throw paint on you? Could they laugh at you? Yeah, it's all possible. Could they write a bad review? Could they give you a 1-star review on your book on Amazon? Yeah, it's possible. We don't know what's going to come. You don't know how people are going to react. But here's the thing, some people could react wonderfully, and your work could be the answer to someone's long-awaited prayer. This happened to me just a few weeks ago. My husband was selling a tent. He had a rooftop tent for his vehicle, and a lady came by and she was getting it for her and her girls. They were going to do some camping stuff. And I just felt led to go out and talk to her. I didn't know anything about her story. And I felt like the Lord was telling me to give her a copy of my book, You Are Worthy. And so I did that, and I had no idea where she was at. And about a week later, she texted me and she said, oh my goodness, like that was a complete divine appointment. I thought I was there to get this tent, but your book has changed everything for me. God gave me this dream and this vision that I was supposed to do this thing. And I didn't do it. I got scared. My husband left me and he left our girls. And so I was too fearful to go ahead and do it. And she just basically was gushing about how now she feels that calling and that purpose to do that thing. And she was just like thanking me profusely. So you don't know when someone's life could be absolutely changed just by a word that you speak, just by the kindness in your heart. Even if you don't have a book or a painting or a song to put out there, when you're at the grocery store and you feel a sense or an urge to say something to someone and you go, oh, I'm going to keep, or even as simple to give someone a compliment. You go, I'm going to keep that to myself. Or I don't want them to think I'm weird. Or I don't want them to think I'm hitting on them, or I don't want them to think, whatever it is. When you have something come to you, sometimes that's the Holy Spirit wanting to work through you, wanting you to be the bearer of a message that they need to hear. Even just saying, oh, hey, how are you today? It's so nice to see you. Whatever it is, you don't know if that kind word was like, I've used this example before, but you don't know if that person in front of you at the grocery store, they're buying what they think is their last meal, that they've decided no one cares about them. They're going to go home and they're going to end their life. But you stopped and you were like, so how are you doing today? How's life going for you? And they've maybe said to God, if you know what, no one cares about me, no one acknowledges me, I'm just gonna end it all. And you stopping to take that time to look into someone's eyes and actually acknowledge them, you don't know how that could be making a difference and saving someone's life. And then when you do that, you don't know what's going to result from that. So you guys, some of you guys know who've read my book, You Are Worthy, or gone through my course, you know that I was saved um, from a suicide attempt, that somebody saved me from that. I wouldn't be here, coaching you guys and writing the books and courses that are making a difference for you. If that man did not find me and bring me to the hospital. I don't even know how I got there. I don't know if he brought me or if he called the ambulance. I don't know. All I know is I woke up strapped down to a table, choking on a tube that was forcing charcoal into my stomach to save me from the overdose. So, what is it that you could do? You may not meet a dramatic situation like that, but what if there's a kind word or something you can say that could make a difference, right? You never know when someone might catch a dream from you. You never know when a little word or something you might do may open up the window of a mind that seeks the light. The way you live may not matter at all, but you never know, it might. And just in case, it could be that another's life through you might possibly change for the better with a broader and brighter view. It seems it might be worth a try at pointing the way to the right. Of course, it may never matter at all, but you never know. It might. So I want to encourage you that there's a lot of metaphorically little boys out in the world lost in their underwear. Not really, but there's a lot of little boys that are just as lost and confused and broken on the inside as the little boy that my friend saved. And if you could just guide one of them back home to safety so that something bad doesn't happen to them, then would that be worth the possible judgment you'd face? Would that be worth the possible ridicule you'd face to lead them in a better direction, to guide them back home, to help restore a reconnection with God or with their parents? Or, can you be brave enough to make that phone call? Are you going to display that piece of art? Say something to that person at the grocery store, go to medical school, become a policeman, start your consulting business, whatever it is that you feel this tug on your heart that you're wanting to do, but you've stopped yourself. You're pushing away, you're holding back due to fear of ridicule and judgment. So be brave and take that next step. You don't know how your purpose could have a ripple effect that goes on and on. The man who saved me, okay, you guys, I'm gonna have to report back to you next week. After this happened 30 years ago, when I was home in July visiting my mom, she's like, "Oh, I found this box of um, notes from like 30 years ago." She goes, "Do you want to look through them?" And I was like, "Okay." And then I was looking through some of these notes and I was getting sad and I was crying because I was like looking at my diary entries, like, why doesn't anybody like me? Why, how come, like, God, what's wrong with me? And And I was like writing stuff to myself, like, I want to kill myself because nobody likes me. And it was really sad. I was like going through it and I was crying. And then I found this note from the person who saved me that it had a phone number and his name. And I've had that since July and I haven't called him yet to thank him. I don't even know if he's still alive. I don't even know how old he was. If he was older when he found me, he might not be around. So I have to work up the courage, and you guys can hold me to this because I'm talking about being brave. I've had this note for like 3 months now, and I haven't called the man yet who saved my life to thank him. And I've had that note for three months now. I tried to find him on Facebook, and it's a common name, so there was like dozens of people that came up. So, I didn't know which one. I don't even know who it was. I don't know what he looks like. Okay, so I didn't think I was going to go there today, but so we have to step out of our comfort zone because it's going to make you stronger. And it doesn't matter if you think you're good enough. It matters what God has put in your heart. So you can overcome anything. That's braveness. It's really putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way, having courage to face the everyday things, putting out your work, putting out your messages, putting out your encouragement, putting out your love to the world, stopping the chatter in your head about what people are going to think about you. Because, like I said, there's a lot of little kids in grown-up bodies that need some guidance, that need love, that need someone to bring them back to a place of safety, that need someone to lead them home. And you could be the person to do it.